Cheers.
Cheers. I have a question for you.
Oh, no. Do I need counsel?
No. So I got watching a show, and then you said you did not like the Tinder Swindler.
Yeah, I couldn't watch it.
Couldn't watch it. Why?
Yeah, it was just so, I was so uncomfortable. He was such a rogue.
Okay.
Such a piece of shit. Like, it was just awful.
Just because it's so uncomfortable?
Yeah, it was bad. Like, like, look, it's a show, so it's not like I'm not reading transcripts.
Marcy liked it.
Well, I made him watch it with me.
Yeah.
You told me to watch it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, revenge for that as I make her sit through The Expanse now on Prime.
Me now.
Which is a damn good sci-fi detective series. But yeah, I was incredibly uncomfortable because I don't like...
This is a true crime story, by the way, if
No, it's
you
real.
haven't heard of it.
It's real, and we spoke about on one of our last podcasts about that guy in Romania who's a bit of
Andrew
quite
Tate,
a rogue.
The lover boy method.
Yeah, and this is very similar.
Yeah, it is, except for it was a different type of fraud being perpetrated.
Right, it's not involved in the human trafficking
Allegedly,
area.
we'll say.
Allegedly, not involved in the human trafficking area, but more of a coercion to extract funds from these essential victims. But, I guess for you, it raises a lot of issues as to what is a willing participant who is truly coerced or forced into this arrangement.
Well, and that's one of the things, too, with fraud versus gifts.
Yeah.
Right? So when you agree to give somebody a bunch of money, it can be seen as a gift unless you have some sort of a documented thing. You can have verbal agreements, right?
Okay, let's go back to contract law. You can have parole agreements, which are verbal agreements.
As Grace has said at our firm, is one of the most complicated forms of law, contract law.
That's right. Or you can have it in writing in some format. You can have a proper contract or a simple agreement, or you can have an oral agreement. But leaving that aside, if it's not in writing and, oral agreements are very hard to prove, then the assumption is it's a gift. Yeah. And then the issue is whatever was given, was it on the basis of a fraudulent inducement or some form of coercion?
Right. And so there's a number of things I found really interesting. And then also, I mean, it's not brand new news or anything like that, but there's a few things about this case that have now evolved that I think are quite interesting about it. One, the Tinder swindler's name is out there.
Yeah.
And he's primarily known as Simon Leviev, but he's now being sued by the Leviev family because he actually took the name of a real person and presented himself to be the King of Diamonds. So when people searched his name, they would actually say, oh, this is actually this guy, right? Right. And so that family has now become aware of it, and so there's a legal action, according to this article.
Well, they'd be suffering damages.
That they're
civilly,
suffering damages.
100%, because he's impersonating a person and a family and bringing upon them ill repute, in a public forum. So
now another interesting thing is that there were in the documentary, I think it's Netflix, the documentary, there were 3 women who came forward and put their faces and names to their experiences with this person. He'd already, reportedly been convicted of similar kind of fraud against other women in Finland and spent 2 years in prison for that. But they helped get him arrested, but not for the charges involving them. So they're now bringing forward civil suits to try and get compensated for what they went through. And there'll be a burden of proof on those cases. But
yeah, so he wasn't charged criminally with the money that he extracted from these particular 3 women, which I will call victims, civil victims. Yeah. And so their recourse is a civil case as opposed to him having been charged with defrauding them.
Yeah. But one of the most curious things to me about stuff being reported in this particular article is that there's a documentary producer, some sort of film producer. He wants to actually do some sort of I'm just flipping through to find where it's reported in this. She actually wants to do like a reality show using the person under the name that he's being sued for, Simon Leviev. Wants to actually produce some sort of reality show.
Are you shitting me? Really?
In which he dates women. I'm going to find the little bit about it.
I will make you watch that.
Yeah, I don't want to watch that. And I certainly don't want to see produced.
I never watch any of these dating reality shows.
I'm going to tell you what really...
But I would watch that.
I'm going to tell you at the end of this what really pisses me off about these types of cases. And of course, and I have deep sympathy for the victims in these cases.
Here it is.
But there is a larger damage that these types of individuals and cases do, and I'll talk about that later.
So here's what's reported in the news that I'm basing my beliefs upon.
Okay.
It says Simon Leviev, of course not his actual real name, has also recently signed with LA-based talent manager name. According to a representative, this manager hopes to write a book, host a podcast in which he offers dating do's and don'ts, and star in a show in which
my don'ts.
In which women compete.
Don't take any advice from it, and don't date this guy.
Star in a show in which women compete for his love.
Oh my God!
Right? So I mean,
we are going to hell as a society. Okay.
This reminds me of a syndrome, actually a very interesting syndrome that has, I can't remember the name of it, and I'm sure some of our viewers will help us out in the comments, where women fall in love with a criminal like Paul Bernardo or serial killers and stuff like that, and they want to get married to them. They fall in love with them. He would go on this reality show after seeing the Tinder Swindler.
Probably tons.
It sounds like the same syndrome, right?
Yeah.
And
it only marginally shocks me, to be honest. But
so this producer said, "I was intrigued with the Netflix story." I'm sorry, I have a bit of a cold right now, but I'll speak as well as I can. I was intrigued with the Netflix story. I saw the world's greatest salesman. And the producer said in a statement to LA Mig, "It left me with a lot of unanswered questions, and I was very biased. I believe there are two sides to every story, and everyone should have the chance to tell their side of the story."
True.
They put, and that's certainly
sometimes
one way to
three
look
sides
at it.
to every story, but yes.
And as criminal defense lawyers, so there is some value to saying
no,
that.
Look, what we see in a documentary, or even in, particularly in media reports, we have to take with a grain of salt. There's always another side. But I mean, evidence was pretty clear about how he conducted himself. But yes, there's two sides to a story.
Yeah. I actually found it kind of deflating at the end when they say that he ended up being caught and arrested for having false documentation, flying under a false name of some sort.
As opposed to being charged with fraud?
As opposed to being charged with anything related to the actual entire documentary.
Well, so it's interesting. I mean, if you convince if you swindle somebody, you say, "I love you and I want to live with you, and I'm a deep agent and I'm hiding from,
Well, he said these things, "My enemies are after me."
I know. I couldn't watch it because I'm like, who believes this? But anyways,
people in love,
and they voluntarily give money to the person who they believe is telling them the truth. We have to be careful about where we are in criminalizing this type of behavior, and the right forum may very well be civil litigation, other than when he's impersonating people or committing actual criminal acts. But I still want to get to what pisses me off the most. But go ahead.
Well, one of the things that concerns me about this, even though I actually have a lot of sympathy for the women in the story, if everything you're saying is true, and it seems that they backed it up fairly well.
Yeah.
But I do have some concerns about this, what I would call the slippery slope, right?
Yes.
Where if you agree to do something, and they agree to do something under certain conditions, which makes it, to me, a little bit different. He said, "I need this money right now, and I will send you a check," according to them, right?
Right.
Is that Ben?
No, it's my daughter Rachel. It never fails.
For the first time, it's Rachel.
They're famous in our podcast because one of them will be calling me during the podcast. So I love you, but I'll call you later. Okay.
So if you agree to do something, though, that without some sort of an agreement in advance, and if it's only a verbal one, it's hard to prove. But if you actually just agree to give somebody money, believing you're in love with them, believing they love you, you're stupid, right?
Well, or you were blindly in love and something happened, but it doesn't rise to the level of criminality. I was
trying to get clever. It was like, what was that? Fool me once, shame on me. It was like, but then I was trying to remember how George Bush said it when he screwed it up. Anyway, some version of that.
Yeah, look, I mean, people can easily be gullible, can be gullible, and they can be easily drawn into a set of circumstances because of what they want to believe, what they want to see. And somebody can be a good salesman about it. Does this cross into the level of criminality? Then we go into the issue of coercive control. Is the person who's doing this having some coercive control? And we spoke a long time ago about how there's been some exploration by groups about criminalizing coercive control. And this is where we start to go down, a very dangerous road.
Well, and also women are going to be far more guilty of coercive control than other forms of, Yeah, we'll just leave it there.
I'm not going to say that. But
Well, that was one of the issues when the legislation was being proposed. They were concerned that a lot of women would be charged under this. That was
maybe.
actually
I mean,
one of the
I see it
concerns.
as a two-way street. Men and or women can each be involved in coercive behavior that impacts another individual. And again, I don't think we're at the stage where this should rise to the level of criminality.
What I don't want to see is I want to see that somebody say, because I believed that person was in love with me, I feel defrauded.
Right. And
That's
therefore
what
it's
we
a
have to be
criminal
careful
offense.
Where the actual fraud line is drawn.
And how you determine what type of control or what influence was. But this is what really disturbs me about all this stuff that I've watched or read begrudgingly, is that it really detracts away from a
You
lot
look
of...
at Mercy when you say begrudgingly.
Yeah, I watch. Because,
She watches your stuff.
I watched The Mandalorian. Hello? I watched
well, you like The Mandalorian, and you
Star
should.
Wars episode I watched.
Absolutely. But we work very hard through the law firm that we have and the work that we do to defend people who are accused of offenses. And we attract in this practice people who, first of all, believe that they're wrongfully accused. And we work very hard and we find out and, uncover.
Not only that, we believe they're wrongfully confused.
We do. Well, but we don't just say,
I almost
okay,
said
you are.
wrongfully confused.
we don't just believe what the client says. We start digging and we start working and we start analyzing statements and we get other evidence. It's like when we spoke, the case we had today, when we started to dig more with the messages and with the images and everything else, and we brought all these applications in this case, we basically were able to box the person in and we established they're fabricating. And today, just so happens, we had a case that collapsed. We brought a motion at the beginning of the case, a mid-trial application, and then once we won that mid-trial application, based on all the grounds that we were saying it was admissible, the complainant didn't want to be cross-examined anymore. So this is where I'm angry. There are very real cases of wrongful accusations that harm people and that have lasting traumatic effects and ruin lives. Yeah. And these types of rogues and these documentaries, I think, undermine the general understanding and concept that there is equally out there wrongful accusations that cause long-lasting trauma and harm. That's what bothers me so much about it. But I guess that we can say that about any aspect of life. But when I watch that and I see such horrible behavior and such, reckless disregard for people's, lives and their money and their emotional behavior, and we're talking about not an overflow of individuals, but interesting high-profile cases that are sensationalized, and you get this $1 million documentary that overshadows the enormous amount of cases that we deal with. Yeah. That's what bothers me so much about it, and I am bothered by how these people are victimized. But at the other side, I'm thinking it just undermines some of the messaging we're trying to get across that this does happen.
You can have sympathy for actual victims without hashtag believing everything.
But that's the point. Yeah. And I guess this is why when you suggested we talk about this on the podcast, I was like, sure, let's go there. But I think the point is that this will overshadow other stuff, and it will lead to believe the victim, believe the accusation. It must be believed at face value. Whereas we've seen far too much in our practice, these wrongfully accused individuals, sometimes women in domestic cases where the husband wants to alienate them from the children. So, we see that, it arising out of high conflict divorces and all sorts of things. I don't want to see this overshadowed, and I don't want to see shit like this be used as an impetus to get more draconian legislation to erode due process. Exactly. That's what really pisses me off.
I know.
Me
also. But to go back to my little slip earlier, the wrongfully confused.
I actually like that. That's good.
I know. Because I think
complainants
one of the points of our podcast is to prevent the wrongfully confused. We want to explain to people how easy it is to be accused of these things, and also explain to people you can't go around swindling people and expect to get away with it.
Yeah.
And, it always upsets me when these actual people exist and, when it's proven in court, and he hasn't actually been convicted of this particular thing. But, every time somebody does do that, then it just becomes fodder for the machine.
Right.
And,
right.
And that machine will eat up anyone in its path.
Sad but true.
Unless they call us.
Oh, should we say like,
subscribe, and hit notifications.
And thank you very much for viewing.
And leave comments if you want to hear
And
us talk about
questions.
something.
We love the questions. Send them in. We're getting lots of questions. It's great stuff. It helps us with further
Oh wait,
material.
we have one more thing.
Oh, what?
What did you hate the most about this show?
The fact that it overshadows what.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was the
I
thing.
mean, it wasn't the acting.
No, the acting was actually
The
great.
acting was good.
Okay.
It's just how it really detracts away from the view, because we have these rogue players. There's so much other that's going on that we need to get out there and for people to understand and stop this draconian legislation. That we'll talk about it more. Anyways, ciao. Good night, guys.